Here we go. And I love that song. Welcome to Grab a Stack of Rock. This is 50 years of Iron Maiden, episode 5, with our special guest, Jex Russell from Jex Russell's Vinyl World and jexcaliber.wordpress.com. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
Doing great now that I'm in good company. It's good to be here.
Excellent. Are you ready to talk about the Number of the Beast tonight with Harrison and I?
Always.
Most excellent. The Number of the Beast, Iron Maiden's 3rd studio album. Let's run down some facts, and then we'll go through this baby track by track. Changes were afoot. Paul Di'Anno, they thought he was irreplaceable. They thought that there was no way that Iron Maiden could come back from the loss of Paul Di'Anno, but they found a guy by the name of Bruce from a band called Samson, and he became the new Iron Maiden lead singer, changing the face and the voice of the band. Their sound evolved, and it began on The Number of the Beast, which was released in the US on 22 March 1982 by Harvest and Capitol Records. A week later, 29 March 1982, in the UK by EMI. It was their first album to top the UK albums chart and reach the top 40 of the US Billboard 200. The album produced the singles Run to the Hills and The Number of the Beast, the former of which became the band's first top 10 UK single. The Number of the Beast was controversial, particularly in the United States, due to religious references in its artwork and the title track. We will talk about that a little bit more when we go through the tracks. Now, interestingly enough, there was all kinds of contractual stuff going on with Bruce Dickinson that he was unable to receive any writing credits on his first Iron Maiden album. All these contracts were still in dispute, but he reportedly co-wrote 3 songs: Children of the Damned, The Prisoner, and Run to the Hills. Now, you can definitely tell that Children of the Damned is a Bruce song, I think, but we'll get there. Regardless, he could not be credited due to these ongoing issues with Samson. So, Jex, we're going to start with the first track, Invaders. But before we go there, just tell us your entry point to The Number of the Beast.
Well, I got to start by saying that I pretty much forced myself onto this episode. When you first told me you were going to be doing 50 years of Maiden, I'm like, I want Number of the Beast, because it was my entry point into Maiden. And basically, it was my first Maiden album I heard in full. It was the first Maiden song I remember hearing was the title track, Number of the Beast. And, it pretty much opened the floodgates. So it's a special album for me. So I was like, I want in. I'm wearing Maiden, but it's Killers. I don't have the Number of the Beast t-shirt, but hey, it's Maiden is Maiden. How did I get into this? Well, in high school, I hung out with one of my best buds was Matt Couture. And oftentimes after supper, I'd bike over to his place and we just hang out in his garage and just, talk about girls and whatnot. And he'd usually just be playing mixtapes that he'd find in his dad's stash. There was a stereo set up in the garage. So one night he just puts in a mixtape and we started to hear the dialogue at the beginning of Number of the Beast. I'm like, what the heck is this? It reminded me of Thriller, the whole Vincent Price rap. But I'm like, it's not it. What is this? And then it goes into the song like 666, the Number of the Beast. I'm like, it felt wrong. I'm like, ooh, this feels like we shouldn't be listening to, but it's addictive. And then I found out it was Iron Maiden, and then I didn't get hooked right away, but in the years that followed, every time someone mentioned Maiden, I'm like, Number of the Beast. So when it got time to buy my first Maiden CD, I went to the store. I was looking at their selection. Well, it was a no-brainer. It only made sense. I'm getting Number of the Beast. And I listened to this. I had my Discman handy, so I listened to this from the mall to my house. And it's it blew my mind, and it was just a great entry point. And you know, it started an addiction, and yeah, so that's the short version of my history with this album.
Thanks, Jex. Now, we both have different editions of the album. I have the UK2 CD, but I believe ours are going to have different running orders of these tracks. So, what we're going to be doing, as we've done on past episodes, is we're going to use my CD as the master, but we are going to end up covering all the tracks. But we're going to be going in my running order.
And I want to point something out too. Well, hold your copy up again, since we're talking about CD versions. Yours, the artwork is a little bluer, right? And I don't think it's not a camera issue. I think they took out the blue on this. Is the 98 reissue, the remaster, and I always notice it's not as blue because even my vinyl copy has got a lot more blue in the artwork, and that always kind of bothers me. I love the color.
Yeah. Alleged, we will talk about the artwork, but I mean, we might as well talk about the artwork now. Then
let's talk about the artwork now.
The original blueness was a mistake made by the printers, and therefore it was corrected for the 1998 remaster. I personally always associate the Number of the Beast with a blue album with a blue artwork. I think the redone artwork, quite frankly, looks a bit bland. It's hard to pick out some of the details, and the blue just has such a more vibrance. And sort of like one of the reasons you can tell that it was corrected and not an alternate cover art is because the disc has the black background as well, whereas the No Prayer for the Dying and Iron Maiden 1998 remasters have the original art on the disc and the redone artwork on the cover. So that's like sort of the giveaway, and then of the subsequent reissues have used that black artwork. But to sort of speak of the artwork, something that you don't notice at first because it gets lost in the background, but then it's like painfully obvious as soon as you see it, is the devil's actually got wings. He's got these black things coming out of his back with a lightning bolt, basically bones stretching across this membrane. It's harder to pick out on the redone artwork because the black blends into the black, but it was something that I just didn't notice. I just, thought, oh, that's just like background stuff, until I actually paid attention to the artwork, and I'm like, hang on a minute, the devil's got wings.
And that's a motif that emerged later on one of the Seventh Son singles. I would like to point out, as we're talking about the wonderful artwork by Derek Riggs, if you follow my blog, MikeLadano.com, I have always argued that there's a running storyline, and the running storyline kind of begins here. You see Eddie. I've always thought that him holding that flame in his hand was a reference to their B-side cover of I've Got the Fire, the Montrose cover. But if you see Eddie, and it's not very visible here on my screen, but his hand is puppeteering the devil. They're little green strings. He's puppeteering the devil. But if you look at the devil, he's actually puppeteering a little miniature Eddie. So in my conception of a running storyline that begins here, there's a battle going on between the devil and Eddie. We think Eddie is winning the battle, but the devil is actually winning the battle. And we will get to that in the next album, Peace of Mind. The back cover is cute too. Derek Riggs painted a torch in Bruce Dickinson's hand there. I've always thought that was really cool. And that is a very different back cover from the original vinyl.
It looks like it's just cropped. Honestly, this is the first time I've seen the original back cover and getting to see the full art.
Yeah.
Right. And the CD has photographs of the band members as well.
Speaking of photographs of the band member, the one that was in the intro, I noticed that Clive is wearing a Trust shirt.
Yes, if you look very carefully at this picture of Clive Burr, that is indeed a Trust shirt.
Now, Trust are a French band that featured none other than Nico McBrain on drum. And later, actually, when Nico left, I believe Clive was the one that replaced him.
Yes, and we're going to hear about this Nico fellow a little bit later on. But back to the album itself. Let's start with track 1, Invaders. This is a song written by Steve Harris. Jex Russell, what do you think about the song Invaders, especially as an opening track?
Well, I feel like I'm going to be repeating myself because this album is so consistent. Every song is just fantastic. But again, when I listen to it, I'm taken back to that day 20 years ago when I bought the CD, and I'm listening to it on my Discman walking home. And I remember just pressing play like it was yesterday, and then down, and I was like, I'm like, what, not even 10 seconds in, I'm already like, holy crap, like this It's like this is gonna be amazing. And Bruce's vocals, Invaders, which I do absolutely no justice. But yeah, I what a great opening track. What else can I say? Like it opens up the album beautifully. That's all. Yeah, that's it.
Wonderful. I would agree with you. I love that. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun, and then the bass line. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
Yeah.
It's almost like Steve Harris is playing a proper bass line for a change, actual notes. Do-do-do-do. I find this track vastly superior to Invasion, which we covered in a prior episode, but it's the same subject matter, the Norse invasion. It's got a great little rock riff, and then the song gallops off at full speed. The choruses I find maybe a little weak, but I really like the verses. The Air Raid Siren, Bruce Dickinson, is immediate. His impact is just right there. And it kind of almost sounds like they wanted to open the album with a song that showcased Bruce's wail to me. Now, lyrically, I love the way the sentences are split between two lines of the verse. For example, longboats have been sighted and the evidence of war has begun. Many Nordic fighting men, their swords and shields gleam in the sun. Call to arms, defend yourself, get ready to stand and fight for your lives. Judgment day has come around, so be prepared, don't run, stand your ground. Love the way that those the lyrics are staggered like that. Great opener. I feel like the chorus maybe isn't up to the quality of some of the songs that we're going to get to, but it's not a bad opener at all. Harrison, Jex was registering some disagreement with me here. Why don't you tell us what you think of Invasion and Invaders?
Invaders.
Yeah.
Laura, looking at my notes, and I quote, "Bleh. I hate Invaders. There are only 4 songs in the Iron Maiden catalog which I can say that I dislike, and I intensely dislike Invaders. First, the verses. I hate the haphazard, scattered, nonsensical vocal melodies. It's like blah 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 blah. Blah. Awful. It makes no sense. There's no flow. It's ugh. And then the chorus, like this obnoxious invaders. Oh, ugh. Yuck.
That's what I love.
That comical, it's like 5 seconds of awesome intro, and then the rest is the crap. Waste of a good intro. Not the last song in their career. That's a waste of a good intro.
Wow, so we are already off to a controversial start here on episode 5. But
will back me up.
Jex, I get the feeling that you're looking to do maybe a rebuttal before we move on to the next song. Am I reading you correctly?
No.
No?
Everyone's entitled their opinions. It's all good.
Okay.
I respect it, but I'm like, I love that chorus, right? Like, like I said, Invaders. So to hear like the total opposite, like, whoa. All right, hey, to each their own, man. To each their own.
All right, well, let's move on, Jex. We have the I'm going to call it an epic called Children of the Damned, written by Steve Harris with a ghost write by Bruce Dickinson. What do you think about Children of the Damned?
Again, slower number, slower tempo. Again, it showcases Bruce's vocal talent. I love that chorus. If Harrison says he hates the chorus of Children of the Damned, I'm out of here. I'm out of here because I can't take it. But man, Children of
doing an Eric Woods.
Yeah, exactly. No, but yeah, and the guitar, bow, 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 bow. No, it's a perfect slow tempo track. Again, like I said, I'm going to be repeating myself because I think every song here is good. Some maybe a little better, but no, that's for a slower song. It's great.
I think there's commonality between Children of the Damned and something like Remember Tomorrow from the earlier albums, and also with Revelations from the next album. And I definitely can hear the Bruce Dickinson in Children of the Damned. I think that Clive Burr is kind of keeping things technical and interesting on the drums. There's some epic rolls here, some epic cymbal crashes. Dickinson's in top voice. And the racing end segment makes you wonder how you got from the quiet opening to the the epic ending. And it's just it's a brilliant song. I find the lyrics a little bit disturbing in parts. peeling the skin from his eyes, watch him die according to plan. You know, there's definitely some imagery here that is not for children, but that's Iron Maiden for you. You know, Children of the Damned is it's a classic, it's an epic, and it's a concise epic, which is a nice change of pace compared to what we'll get later on. Harrison, your thoughts?
Get a drum roll in here. No, I love Children of the Damned. Love it. You know, that light and shade that you pointed out, that it shares similarly with Remember Tomorrow, Revelation. It's not something that Maiden do very often, but whenever they do it, they nail it. Like you said, well, I mean, what can I say about it that hasn't already been said? Like, I mean, even though it is slower, it's great. I love the sort of like the vocal bridge before the solo, and it speeds up, and then in particular, like even the verses, even though they're slower, they're still Bruce finds a way to inject like a lot more life into them. Like if he had lived, he would have crucified us all, and all of that. Yeah, I mean, I love Children of the Damned, and Adrian's solo in particular. Not only does it sound great, watching it is great, as he does like that 2-finger tapping, or at least he did in 2007 when he played it. But yeah, no, great song.
Brilliant. And then we move on to yet another great song. We want information. Information. Who are you? The new number 2. Who is number 1? You are number 6.
Number 6.
I am not a number. I am a free man. And then that riff. Jex, the prisoner. Are you first a 2-part question? Are you familiar with the TV series that it's based on, and your commentary on the song?
Well, I am now because of this song. When I first heard the song like 20 years ago, I could tell it was from an old film or TV show. And then, you know, obviously I looked it up. I found out, okay, it's an old TV show with, forgetting the actor's name, McEwen, I think.
Patrick McGowan.
Patrick McGowan.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So I've seen clips, but it's all because of this song. It kind of arose curiosity. Like, okay, I got to see what they're talking about. So I went and watched that clip. But no, I wasn't familiar with it at the time. But then when I heard it, I think this was probably my favorite song. I can flip-flop between a couple of songs, like, oh, this is my favorite now, and then later, no, this is my favorite. But when I first heard the album, that was my favorite song because of that kick-ass intro. And then, you know, when it kicks in and you know, the chorus again is great. I'm not a prisoner, I'm a free man. I liked it so much that at the time, I was working at a gas station, and every night there was a radio show because all I had was radio. There wasn't smartphones or anything. I had the radio, and every night there was this show called Request a Song with Jeff Long. And I would call Jeff every night and request a different song. It would kind of be the highlight of my shift. And around the time I bought the CD, I called Jeff and I requested The Prisoner. And he played it. And later that night, a regular came in to buy his cigars. He goes, "Did I hear you on the radio? Is that you requesting The Prisoner, Iron Maiden?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Freaking love that album." And he tells me how he bought the album when it came out. Anyway, it was a cool interaction. So it's an example of Iron Maiden bringing people together. But yeah, as soon as I heard it, I'm like, this song, man, like, again, so much that I had to request it on the radio, and the fact they actually played it was great. So yeah, a top song for me.
Absolutely agreed. Now here's the funny story, is that they had to get permission from Patrick McGowan to use his voiceover at the beginning of the song. And apparently management called up Patrick McGowan and said, you know, we have this band Iron Maiden and they want to
Rod's
use
there
this.
Trembling on the phone, like, oh,
trembling on the phone. And apparently Patrick McGowan, he had just had 2 words for them. Do it.
Yeah, like, heavy metal band, you say. Do it.
Do it.
Hangs up.
Do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
As opposed
So they
to
got
say Vincent
we'll get
Price,
there next
who said,
time.
I don't get out of bed for less than $10,000. And then
the next
Frank
album,
Herbert, you see,
Yeah.
which we'll also get to, where
We'll
he's
get there.
like, you know, Mr. Frank Herbert does not like rock and roll bands.
That's right, especially rock and roll bands like Iron Maiden.
Yes.
I wanted to point out that I felt that Clive Burr's drums here was very Bonham-esque in a way. Opening. You know, I thought that this was the most accessible song in the album, and maybe one of the most accessible songs of their entire career to date. You're talking about, Jex mentioned that chorus, that catchy chorus, that anthemic
You can
chorus.
really hear the Adrian Smith co-write influence there. He has a more commercial sensibility. That's not to say he's a pop writer, but he brings that, and you'll hear that in songs like Wasted Years.
This is a Harris Smith writing credit. I think that this is constructed of some very excellent sections all put together. You know, we have that, and then we have the fast part, and then we have that chorus, and then we have the doodly 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 in the solos and all that. Oh my God, I've said enough. The last thing that I wrote down here was that it should have been a single. And if the year had been 1986, when we were up to sort of like a 3-single norm, possibly could have been a single. Anyway, that's all I have to say about The Prisoner. Oh, and incidentally, one other thing about The Prisoner is the TV show had a certain element in it that will appear later in an Iron Maiden music video when we get to the 2000s. Harrison's smiling. He knows what I'm talking about. But about the song The Prisoner, what do you think, Harrison?
I mean, you've said exactly every single thing I wanted to say. I was going to point out that it's the Adrian Smith co-write bringing the more commercial sounding chorus. I was going to point out, what was I going to point out? How have I forgot this already? I was going to say that it should have been a single. I mean, obviously, just listening to that, maybe Steve Harris didn't want to put something, more commercial sounding out yet as a single. But yeah, I mean, it's a great song. I love it. Doesn't get played live nearly enough as it should.
All right, let's move on to the next song. Number 22, Acacia Avenue. So this is the second of 3 appearances of Charlotte. Jex, how do you feel about the side 1 closer, 22 Acacia Avenue?
Well, like every song here, I like it. But what I will say is that in the past, like around the time I bought the album, I used to focus completely on the music. I wouldn't really listen to lyrics, right? So it was all about the music. That's why I liked it so much. It was nice, it was heavy. And it wasn't until like many, many years down the line that I started actually paying attention to lyrics and listening to stories. And I'm like, well, that's what songs are about, aren't they? You have to listen to story. So when I got to, Charlotte the Harlot and then 22 Acacia Avenue, was like, oh, I mean, it's a hard song to it's hard stuff to hear, because it's, like beat her, mistreat her, do whatever you please. It's like, whoa, it's it's some heavy material. But again, it's Maiden is Maiden, and a good song is a good song. But it's, you just got to be mindful of the subject matter, prepare yourself, and everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, that lyric kind of took me as a kid a little bit by surprise as well. So this is a Harris Smith composition, and I think you can tell with that choppy riff at the start, it just sounds like their magic. It's one of those riffs that you only write a few of in your entire lifetime, and it's here on 22 Acacia Avenue. The first song, Charlotte the Harlot, contained a bit of storytelling, but this song offers a lot more information. It seems to be that one of Charlotte's clients is espousing her business talents. And then perhaps there's a second character coming in and telling Charlotte she's got to get out of this lifestyle. Don't you know it'll only bring you sadness? And all of this is going to the tune of a heavy metal song for the ages. Steve's bass line is more for the song than usual, and it's really effective at holding down the bottom end. I think this is just a fabulous song. Every section of it kills. Charlotte the Harlot absolutely rules all over 22 Acacia Avenue. Those are my thoughts. Harrison.
All right, so there's actually 4 Charlotte the Harlot songs, but the third one is a bit light in terms of actually referencing her. There's just a line about, I got the keys to the view at number 22, and that's it.
Hooks in you.
Yes, we'll talk about that in No Prayer for the Dying, but now I'm going to talk about 22 Acacia Avenue. It's a good song. I like it, but it does a lot of things. At the start, it's one, and then there's a midsection, and then there's another third stylistic section, but none of it really does it for me to the same level that the whole of the first song of Charlotte the Harlot did, like that crazy frenetic. I love Charlotte the Harlot. It's the song. It's my first favorite song on that first Iron Maiden album, and I don't think 22 Acacia Avenue lives up to it.
Wow, I am being surprised by both of you guys tonight in some ways, but all's fair. Now we're flipping the record over and we get to the number of the beast. Now, just for some background, while they were recording the album, they may have had some supernatural shenanigans in the studio, and they were kind of wondering if the album was cursed because of this song. I believe there was also a car accident and an auto repair bill that came to exactly 666 pounds. The spoken word introduction comes from the book of Revelation, and it is read by actor Barry Clayton. According to Bruce Dickinson, the band originally approached Vincent Price, as Harrison said earlier, to record this passage, but they were unwilling to pay Price's fee of £25,000. The liner notes state that the passage is from Revelation 13:18, and the first line comes from 12:12, according to my notes. Now, this song stirred up a lot of controversy. It was the Satanic Panic in the United States, and before we get to Jex's thoughts on the song, I just want to run a quick little interview from my Much Music archives with Bruce Dickinson. Gives you a little bit of context as to what the time period was like. And, let's not forget, we had protesters at concert halls when bands like Iron Maiden would roll into town in the Bible Belt. So let's hear what Bruce Dickinson had to say about the number of the beast.
All got done in a mishmash. Well, what happened was that the music scene in the 10 years since that time has been, I think messed up largely by the media, because what's happened is that they've taken the really visible elements of it and used it to market things. So any band that sounded a bit like Black Sabbath so they got marketed like Black Sabbath, so they had to deal with all the crucifixes and everything else. And then suddenly they decided that anything that had a Marshall stack in front of it was now heavy metal. So in order to be heavy metal, a whole bunch of, things came up. And they just took in some bands, it's almost a parody of it. It's almost like a joke. And that's why it makes me laugh when people take all this singing about Satan and the devil seriously, because these guys couldn't be further away from Satan worshippers if you tried.
Well, Bruce hit the nail on the head in that video. I mean, like, Iron Maiden are not heavy metal in the same way that Judas Priest are heavy metal, and yet they're both heavy metal. Iron Maiden are Iron Maiden. They play Iron Maiden. Nobody else plays Iron Maiden, and Iron Maiden play what is uniquely them. They're, like, the recording industry is basically like, you go in this peg, you go in this peg, you go in this peg, basically. And, like you see that like with bands later down the line as well, like they're like this, they're like that, but really they are themselves, and Iron Maiden sort of encapsulates that better than most, I think.
Jex, your thoughts on the number of the beast?
Well, you addressed a lot of what I was going to say. I was going to talk about the whole Satanic Panic and people misinterpreting the lyrics. And again, I don't know how factual this is. I was reading up on the song. This was a while back, and apparently, I think it was Harris got the inspiration for it when he watched The Omen 2, the movie The Omen Part 2, Damien, and then he had a nightmare afterwards, and it inspired this song. That's what I remember reading. Again, is that fact? I don't know, but I think that would be a pretty interesting story. But yeah, I talked about the song earlier, how it was my introduction. It opened up the floodgates. So I think that pretty much sums it up. I love that spoken word at the beginning. And it's funny because you guys mentioned Vincent Price. I didn't know that story, but I told you how I thought it was Vincent Price the first time I heard it, because it reminded me of the Thriller bit. So it makes sense that they would have wanted him. He would have been perfect. But the actor whose name you said, I'm forgetting.
It was Barry Clayton.
Yeah, well, he did a terrific job, no matter what. And I love that Revelations passage. They put it on the back of the LP. However, on my CD copy, the '98 reissue, it's not there. It's not on the back at all. So I like to have the vinyl copy for that reason. But yeah, it's a great title track. Great side opener. I need to mention that right now. I think the sequencing on this album is terrific. But yeah, that's all I can say. Number of the Beast. I mean, great song.
As kids, it's amazing how we had things like "Woe to you, O earth and sea." we had this stuff memorized, but it's like we couldn't remember our math homework. The music video, I will point out, was great. It had that opening from that werewolf movie, that black and white, and it's really creepy, especially when the thing turns and looks at the camera, so creepy. And then it had the really cool stage stuff with Iron Maiden playing on stage and Bruce with those freaking gauntlets with the studs on them. Legendary appearance. I mean, Bruce was like, you find out the guy's actually only like 5 feet tall, but he looks so tough in those videos, and the hair, the straight hair with the bangs going straight across. He looked vicious. And then we have the weird part in the middle of the video with the ballet dancers and, the devil and all this stuff. So strange, so impactful. And yeah, Jack.
You just unlocked a memory, because on the 98 reissue, it's those interactive discs. And they come with
the
2 music
enhanced
videos.
CDs from...
Yeah, enhanced. Yeah, exactly. So you have Run to the Hills and Number of the Beast, the 2 videos. And I remember I bought this, it was 20 years ago, 2005, and I popped it in the computer. The QuickTime player came on, and I watched Number of the Beast. And I think that might have been the last time I watched the video. But Mike, sorry to interrupt, you brought it up, and it all came back to me. And I remember that was the first time that I discovered that the Crimson Ghost, which is famous for being the logo for the Misfits, that skull face, comes from an old serial from the 30s or 40s called The Crimson Ghost, and you see bits of it in that video. I was like, what the Misfits? What? And then I went down a rabbit hole and found out it's The Crimson Ghost. But yeah, anyway, sorry, you talk about the video. It all.
I like finding out that Kim's Wilds, You Keep Me Hanging On, is actually an old Supremes song. To put a little bit of new wave into this.
Yeah.
It's funny you should mention the Crimson Ghost, because I actually grew up on those old serials. I saw the Crimson Ghost when I was growing up, but I didn't necessarily put 2 and 2 together. But as a relevant point, my dad was always okay with me listening to bands like Iron Maiden because of things like the Crimson Ghost being in their music videos, because of the Battle of Britain and things like that being in a later video that we will get to in a later album. But yeah, all great stuff, Jex. I thought that there was a really nice, fast, and not too simple Clive Burr drum part, solid metal chug, and a fantastic example of a well-written Davey guitar solo. I don't really have too much else to say about The Number of the Beast. Absolutely fantastic song, and of course, history has proven its impact. Harrison, go ahead.
On the 1998 remaster, the passage on here is from the Book of Parlophone. It says, digitally remastered 1998, the copyright in this sound recording. Anyway. Yeah, I'm just saying stuff. Because what can I say about The Number of the Beast that hasn't been said? I mean, it's an amazing song. Because I'm being a bit of a contrarian tonight, I'll say I always preferred when they sang all 3 sixes and didn't leave it for the audience.
Oh, man, I remember as a kid getting one of the single B-sides, what we'll talk about on a later album, and he sings 6! The audience is like, 6. And I remember being so disappointed with that single B-side. But, again, that's for another album.
I mean, I watched Judas Priest Rising in the East DVD, and then Rob lets the audience sing the entirety of the Electric Eye chorus, and I'm just like, come on, man. Anyway.
Wow.
Well, Bruce didn't laze out too much.
Yes, no, we're not here to pit these bands against each other. They're both great, and aging affects us all. So I believe that takes us to Run to the Hills then, Mike.
Yes, a Steve Harris song. And 2 singles in a row, 2 massive singles in a row. Jex, I mean, what can you say about Run to the Hills?
What can you say about Run to the Hills? Like, those opening drums, like, it's so identifiable. You hear those drums, like Run to the Hills. In fact, that interview you played with Bruce Dickinson earlier, I think I heard one quick millisecond of it at the end. I was like, that was Run to the Hills, because it's so identifiable. Yeah. Again, what can you say? I love the song. I love everything about it. I love the verses. I love the chorus, the vocals. Everyone's on their game on this whole album, basically. I mean, let's just go ahead and say it. But yeah, I know for basically every song so far, I said I'm brought back to when I first bought the CD. But funnily enough, when I think of Run to the Hills, I think of Mike's gonna know what I'm talking about. I don't know about Harrison, but that movie Fubar, the Canadian film Fubar, that song's in it, and I always think back at Fubar.
Fubar is an absolutely legendary Canadian mockumentary comedy about banger culture. I highly recommend you check it out.
great comedy, by the way. But yeah, again, that's it. What else is there to say?
Run to the Hills is playing when the two guys from Fubar are going up to the mountains to go for a sweet swim, isn't it? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, good memory,
Pretty
Jex.
sure.
That is. I'm glad you brought that up because I totally forgot that fact, and it's 100% true. And I do remember a quote because I watched the audio commentary version of that, which is so good. They do the commentary in character, Dean and Terry, and Dean actually says in the commentary, you know, this part of the movie is the part where Farrell's about to die, so you're kind of sad, but then you hear this music and you can't be sad. So there you go. There's Run to the Hills in the movie Fubar. I have very little to add here. The lyrics are kind of brutal in a way, and some might say insensitive, but that is, you know, the fact of the matter. You know, when North America was being colonized, you know, the only good Injuns are tame, you know, all of that stuff. No, everything about this song is factual. So keep that in mind. No judgment. I think the drum beat, that Clive Burr drum beat, is something. How did Martin Popoff describe his style? I'm going to use the word kind of janky. Boom, 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 boom. You know, that drum beat, that really only could have been conceived by Clive, I think. It's a signature Clive Burr drum beat. But this is a great song, and it has that really cool intro before it gets really fast. And, you know, we've talked about this a number of times over the years. That was my entry point to Iron Maiden, was Run to the Hills. And I made an entirely separate video of that, which you can check out on my YouTube. But it was December 26th, 1984, that I first heard Run to the Hills on an album called Masters of Metal Volume 2, and it changed the trajectory of my life forever. You know, what would I have been doing if I never heard that song that day? Maybe I would have gotten into painting model airplanes instead of music, you know?
Driving
my
a
life
Camaro
could have
and
gone
listening to April Wine,
it could have
as
been
the
that.
old joke went.
Yes. Anyway, that's, I think, all I have to say about Run to the Hills. But you know, the impact of this song, even though I'll be honest, I'm sick of it now, the impact of it cannot be overstated. Harrison, over to you.
Yeah, I think Run to the Hills is a bit overrated, partly because I'm sick of it. I mean, like, but to be fair, I'm a huge Iron Maiden fan. I have all of their live albums. I have all their I have tons of unofficial bootlegs too. Like, I'm sick of hearing "Run to the Hills, run for your life." How many times can you hear that? Like, it's a good. I'm sure it's a good song, and it, you know, was great back in the day. But like, I'm just tired of it, unfortunately, and that's sort of doesn't help sort of these retrospective looks on the album because I'm coming from a modern perspective. But yeah, I went and saw Iron Maiden in last year, and I was happy that they didn't play Run to the Hills. I wanted to hear other stuff.
Fair.
With you on that. So sorry, Jex, go ahead.
All right, I'm just gonna say, I thought someone might be showing the singles artwork, but is it Run to the Hills or Number of the Beast that you actually have? Yeah, there it is. That's the one I was thinking of. The devil fighting Eddie. I love that artwork.
You can see his wings there as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're a lot more evident here.
Yes.
I love it.
Amazing cover art. I think this made my list for some of the greatest Maiden cover art when we did that way back on the LeBrain train.
Oh yeah, not surprising.
And we'll just show the Number of the Beast cover art as well while we're here.
Couldn't remember which.
Now, this one here, as we discussed in a prior episode, this is not Eddie's first decapitation. But there you go.
Yes, we thought he won the battle against the Beast, but as Mike pointed out, peace of mind comes along and shakes things up.
Yeah, we'll get there. Anyway, we move on my CD to a track called Gangland, which was written by Clive Burr and Adrian Smith. Jex, your thoughts on Gangland?
I didn't take specific notes for this one. To repeat what I said before, to me it's a consistent album. So there's not one bad song on it. I don't really have anything specific to add about it. But again, it's Maiden. It's Maiden can't do any wrong as far as I'm concerned. They might have lesser songs, but I don't think there's a Maiden song that I hate. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm kind of there with you. I don't hate Gangland either, although this is the song that Steve said that he would have preferred he left for a B-side and put Total Eclipse on the album instead. I'll address that when we get to Total Eclipse. Um, I feel that this song has a drum beat that only Clive could have written. It's a bit janky. It's a bit lacking in hooks, but I like Gangland enough that I would have kept it on the running order as it is, second to last track. But I'm curious what Harrison's position on this is.
I mean, yeah, people are always arguing, should it have been Gangland, shouldn't it have been Total Eclipse? Well, in my mind, there's a very obvious B-side, and it's Invaders. Yeah, but then again, I hate Invaders. I love Gangland. I love it so much. I think it should have been the opener. It's this frenetic, rapid-fire assault of aggression. It's great, neat, and I mean, go back, and I mean, I think it stood the test of time. You go back a few years, there's a YouTube video of Adrian Smith playing Gangland, and the reception is all positive to it.
And there you go. And we're already at the end of the album now, which is Hallowed Be Thy Name, which, interestingly enough, on my original Canadian cassette version was called Hallowed By Thy Name. This is a Steve Harris solo write. It is a epic. Jex, as a closing track, how do you rate Hallowed Be or By Thy Name?
11 out of 10. Like, it's such a good closer. Like, again, I'm repeating myself, but I always bring myself back to my first listen, right? The first impressions mean everything. And by the time I got to that track, like I said, I was listening on my way home from the mall on my Discman. But by the time I got to the last couple of songs, I had gotten home. So I put the CD into my actual stereo in my room. And I'm doing some tidying up. And when I got to that, like those opening vocals, when Bruce says, and the bells begin to chime, chills. I was like, holy crap, like this song is haunting. And and then it kicks in like bow now now, just the emotions. It's a roller coaster. And I dug it then, I dig it now, if not more. Terrific closer. It's hard. I'm repeating myself. I'm saying this is great, that's great, but again, Number of the Beast, the whole album, there's nothing bad to say. It's that's, like I said, roller coaster of emotions. Just a great song.
Yeah, 100%. And I'd like to point out also that this has sort of the beginnings of some of those rapid fire Steve Harris lyrics where Bruce has to cram a whole bunch of syllables into one line, like, take a look through the bars at the last sights of a world that has gone very wrong for me. It's very fast paced. But man, I mean, like you said, that opening with the chimes, and I didn't really like the way Bruce sang it on the Live After Death album. He kind of put a little bit of twang, around my life. But I mean, this is a brilliant song. It has multiple parts. After that intro, there's a note that Bruce holds on to for a long time. And then we start going into a more up-tempo part. And there's so much going on. Harrison said previously with one of the other tracks how there's like 3 or 4 distinct sections. The thing about this album is, these songs have 3-4 distinct sections, and a lot of them, they're all awesome. They all have something memorable, something solid, big riff, big vocal hook, incredible soloing, tempo changes. Hallowed Be Thy Name is a perfect Iron Maiden song. It's a quintessential Iron Maiden song. I would put this among the essential Iron Maiden songs for any beginner to hear, to get a taste of what it means to have an Iron Maiden song. It has that epic, but it's not those long drawn out kind of epics that they would get maybe a little too much into later on. They're still doing them concisely. I don't know if I have anything else to say about it. Again, perfect 10 out of 10. Harrison, what do you have to say about Hallowed?
I mean, there's nothing new that you can say about Hallowed Be Thy Name, so I'm going to address something that happened a bit more recently. I say recently, it was 2016. That's almost 10 years ago. Time flies. But anyway, one of the songwriters of a song called Life's Shadow from the band Beckett sued the band, alleging that they had taken and used some of the lyrics from that song in Hallowed Be Thy Name. Now, that does appear to be true, but how I reconcile this with my love of Iron Maiden, basically I'm making an excuse for this, but, Hallowed Be Thy Name is an amazing song. And while the lyrics do contribute to that, if it had different lyrics in there, imagine all the copied lyrics were gone and replaced with something else. I still think it would be just as amazing. You know, maybe like going from a 10 out of 10 song to a 9 out of 10 song, but it wouldn't have made a difference to the song. Hallowed Be Thy Name, you know, and Hallowed Be Thy Name is might be one of the greatest Iron Maiden songs, but think of how many great Iron Maiden songs are on this album, let alone in the rest of their career. Even if you take the lyrics from Hallowed Be Thy Name and dumb them down to something like When Dinosaurs Roamed the Earth, it wouldn't have made a difference to Maiden's career, their trajectory, any of that. They would still be as big as they are today. So how do I reconcile Steve Harris taking some lyrics by saying it wouldn't have made a difference if he hadn't?
I agree. And, you know, whatever happened with that controversy.
Yes, they settled out of court to avoid escalating legal fees.
So everybody was made whole in the end, and that's all that matters. Before we start talking about some of the single B-sides, quickly, guys, let's rate the album. I'm going to go 8 out of 10 for Number of the Beast. How about you guys? Harrison?
So Number of the Beast might not be the most unique album in their discography, you know, compared to something like Somewhere in Time or Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. It may not be the most varied album in their discography compared to something like Senjutsu or Peace of Mind for a more contemporary one. But the one thing it does, which is ass-kicking heavy metal, it does really well, apart from one or two songs that I'm not all that fond of. So I'd give it somewhere between a 4.25 and a 4.5 out of 5, which equates to about 8.59.
Okay, so we're not too far off. Jex, your thoughts?
Oh, man. Maybe predictable, but I have to give it a 10 out of 10. I mean, I'm mixing in the sentimental value, the nostalgia, you know, the hearing it for the first time. And because of all those reasons, it always remained my favorite Maiden album. So yeah, it's hard for me to give it anything below a 10 out of 10. I just got it.
Solid. All right, let's move on to the B-sides, of which there are only 2. The major one, though, is Total Eclipse, which Steve later restored to the album. Jex, your thoughts on Total Eclipse?
You know, because Total Eclipse, it doesn't appear on my vinyl copy. This is my original Canadian pressing. It's not on there. It is on the 98 reissue. And
song number 8.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, it's between Gangland and Hallowed Be Thy Name. And I think when I was listening to it in preparation for this, I was listening on Spotify. And again, maybe I just wrote it down wrong, but I don't think it's on Spotify because I didn't listen to it in preparation, so I don't have any notes. And honestly, if I'm trying to think back at it, I'm drawing a blank. I can't remember what it sounds like. So I can't give you any proper thoughts.
To sum up from Jex's testimony, we've learned 2 things. 1, it's not on Spotify. And 2, it didn't make enough of an impact.
Yeah, well, there you go. Again, don't quote me. I don't think it's on Spotify. Maybe because I had the Wikipedia page up too. Maybe I can't remember which track listing I wrote down, but yeah, I didn't write any notes for it. So,
you know, it's funny, guys. I've had Total Eclipse in my life for ages. Back when my sister and I used to buy vinyl singles back at the old Zeller's store at the mall, she actually bought Run to the Hills. You know, she liked Run to the Hills, and we were both like, "What is this song, Total Eclipse, on the B-side?" And, you know, I can honestly say I never particularly liked it that much. It's a Harris Murray Burr co-write, which is, I think, the only such combination in the entire Iron Maiden catalog. 425 is the time listed on the back. It's progressive, probably one of the more progressive tracks of the Number of the Beast tracks. It's a little bit slower than most of them. To me, I think it belongs on the B-side. I don't think it's as good necessarily. I don't think it's better than Gangland necessarily. So I'm happy with it being on the single. To me, this is where it belongs. Harrison, your thoughts on Total Eclipse?
Yeah, a lot of people in the band seem to really like it, but I'm similar to you. Like, it sits in a similar place to 22 Acacia Avenue for me. Like, it does a few things, but none of the things it does really does it for me. When I'm putting on the album, you know, it's like, I can't wait to hear Children of the Damned, Prisoner's great, I can't wait to get to Gangland, but Total Eclipse is just something on the way to Hallowed Be Thy Name for me. I do like the first half better. I think the fact that it's like essentially 2 songs put together, because it's got the more traditional heavy metal first half and then it slows down for a slightly bluesier second half. I think that might be where the triple co-write comes from, because I think it's entirely likely they got two songs that they had sort of ideas for and jammed them together. But yeah, I think, yeah, either that. I hate Invaders, so I'd put that on the B-side, but I think Total Eclipse was a fine B-side. I would never have put Gangland on the B-side.
Okay, so we're more or less in agreement, and I like your theory on the songwriting. I think that's probably a solid theory. There was one more B-side, which was Remember Tomorrow, recorded live in Italy. Jex, did you listen to this track?
I have not.
Okay, so in our past episodes, we kind of danced around Bruce Dickinson singing Paul Di'Anno material, but this is our first actual track released by Iron Maiden where we have Bruce Dickinson singing Paul Di'Anno material. So now we have to address that. It's been kind of an elephant in the room for the last few episodes, so we're going to go there now. I also noted that this is the second live version of Remember Tomorrow released on a single B-side, but Bruce does his best.
We'll get to that.
Sorry?
We'll get to whether it's the second in a minute.
Okay. Thank you, Harrison.
I know that's ominous. Don't worry.
It's not that ominous. Don't worry, folks. Bruce does his best, but his operatic approach doesn't match my feelings for the song. It's different. It has a very different flavor with Bruce singing. I prefer Paul Di'Anno. As I said, Bruce does his best, but I don't think his voice is suited to Remember Tomorrow. I'm just going to put it out there. Sorry. Elephant in the room has been addressed. I don't think Bruce's voice is suited to Remember Tomorrow, but it's a valuable B-side. It's worth having in your collection. Like I said, it is the first time that we have heard Bruce do a Paul Di'Anno song on an Iron Maiden release. So important for that reason. Now, Harrison, what were you going to tell me?
Well, first I'm going to just talk about Bruce doing Paul stuff. I'm not one of those people that are like, Paul does them all better. I'm not one of those people that's Bruce does them all better. I evaluate on a song-by-song basis, and not just a song-by-song basis, a version-by-version basis. There might be versions of Wrathchild I like with Bruce and versions that I think Bruce doesn't do as well. But Remember Tomorrow is one of the songs I don't think Bruce can do. I'll have this sort of thing that I'll keep going back to throughout the series. It's Bruce can't sing soft. I don't think he sounds good trying to sing the soft stuff. I don't think he does the intro to Hallowed Be Thy Name particularly well. I don't think he sounds good on Remember Tomorrow. In my eyes, it took him until 2024 with Face in the Mirror before he could do a sound good doing a soft song. And so, but his shrieks are A+ on point, like in the chorus, like that is a good thing. But this is of dubious authenticity, the liveness of this, because the prevailing theory, and I've actually done some listening myself, and I do corroborate this, is that this isn't live in Italy. What this is it's the instrumental track from Maiden Japan, taken, and then Bruce's voice overdubbed over. Now, right before the first chorus of Bruce's version, you can actually hear the ghost of an echo of Paul going like, because Paul ramps up in the chorus with like, come on, hit me. You can actually hear the ghost of that picked up on one of the other microphones or like echoing back. And it does sound a lot like that Made in Japan version, just the actual instrumental part of it. So and Bruce in particular, his voice doesn't sound the same as the bootlegs. Like, I haven't done an A/B test with the Italy bootlegs, but I've done an A/B with Made in Japan, and I know what Bruce sounds in that era, and he doesn't sound the same as what he's singing on this track. So I think it's entirely likely that they cobbled something together just to have a live version with Bruce to be able to put on the B-side.
The detective work here. Wow.
This is why you're watching the series, folks. For this man right here. And speaking of this man right here, at this point of each episode, we like to give Harrison the floor as he's going to tell us all about the Number of the Beast tour. Harrison, when you're ready, take it away.
All right, The Beast on the Road, 184 shows. It was a headlining tour in Europe, but they were in support still on the US. This was the last time they'd play support ever. They supported a combination of the Scorpions, Rainbow, 38 Special, and Judas Priest, and any of those bills would have been an amazing concert to see back in the day. Among those 184 shows, they also hit Australia for the first time. They played 3 dates, 2 in Melbourne, and one in Adelaide, of all places. I mean, Adelaide's not the biggest city in Australia, but the fact that they skipped Sydney is interesting, because Sydney is a very big place. You know, when we're getting into Australian history, but when it was time to decide the capital of Australia, we had Sydney and Melbourne, and they couldn't agree on who got to be the capital. So they were like, we will make a new city that's halfway between Sydney and Melbourne. That way everyone's equally unhappy. And that was the capital of Australia, Canberra. It's halfway between Sydney and Melbourne. But anyway, back to the set list. So basically, the set list had a solid amount of Di'Anno. Just over 50% of the songs were Di'Anno tracks, and then there were 7 Number of the Beast songs, and total Eclipse was played live. No Gangland or Invaders played. And I've Got the Fire was played at about 7 shows that we have records of, which would make it the last time, I believe, that a cover made it into like the main set on a semi-regular basis. Like there might have been one-off Smoke on the Water, you know, that sort of thing. Then the entire population of Hackney in '86, but other than that, they never play covers anymore, basically. So Clive actually left after the tour, dismissed. The reasoning is unsure. Steve sort of maintains that he wasn't in it 100%. In retrospective documentary, Clive's like, I didn't want to leave, but can't sort of really sort of corroborate that he wanted to be there at the same time. And you know what Steve Harris is like. So allegedly there were also some issues, some friction between Steve and Clive. I remember hearing that, you know, Steve would go up to the drums and say, play faster, and then Clive would deliberately play slower, sort of thing. So there was some issues with Clive, and he unfortunately went, but he was replaced by a man called Nico McBrain. Now, we'll get to that in Peace of Mind, but Nico actually made his first appearance with Iron Maiden during the Beast on the Road tour, where allegedly he says he was one of the devil guys with pitchforks that appeared during the Number of the Beast. Now, I mentioned Nico was in that band Trust that Clive was wearing the shirt on as well. So, and lastly, so as you mentioned earlier in the show, the Number of the Beast went to #1 in the UK. Now, Bruce speaks about how the moment they found this out, they were actually trying to repair a flat tire, I believe it was, on their tour bus that had broken down. So it was like, great, come and help us with this, the moment they got told that they were #1 at the time. But now, the Number of the Beast going forward. So the Number of the Beast is probably the most represented album in the live set since. You know, the Number of the Beast 3, which are Hallowed Be Thy Name, Run to the Hills, Number of the Beast, have been played all the time, except for a few tours here and there. I think before the Future Past tour, where none were played, you know, it was a big event when they took Hallowed Be Thy Name out of the set during the songwriting dispute. And then there were obviously not Run to the Hills didn't get played on the Blaze era, but by and large, they got played. At least 2 of 3 got played every tour just about since, you know. 22 Acacia Avenue pops up occasionally. It did appear on the World Slavery tour, and I think it appeared on the Number of the Beast, the No Prayer for the Dying tour. And The Prisoner and Children of the Damned are sort of like, they appear once every 10 years in the set list. You know, Children of the Damned was there in '86. Then it appeared again in sort of the early days tour. Then it appeared in 2007. Then it appeared in 2016. And, you know, The Prisoner was Future Past. Then it was Maiden England tour, and it was on No Prayer. So it's very well represented in the set list since. And I imagine it will continue to be well represented into the Run for Your Lives tour.
Excellent. Thank you, Harrison. I believe at this point we have sort of agreed that the next episode is going to be Beast over Hammersmith, a double live album that was actually released way later on, but falls chronologically here. Now, I have shown my vinyl here of Number of the Beast 40th anniversary, but this is not the version that comes with Beast over Hammersmith. But this is sealed. I bought this a year ago at my former employer. The Beat Goes On, and we're gonna actually, to end the episode, we're gonna open this up for the first time, because vinyl is meant to be played, and I'm gonna open it up in such a way that we're gonna preserve this 40th anniversary Number of the Beast sticker. Look at that. There we go, into focus. Isn't that nice? That's a nice sticker. So we're gonna preserve that. We are just going to take my Swiss Army knife and cut a very careful slit here, like that.
Funniest thing about that knife you have there is my mother has an identical pair over here in Australia, or had.
That's cool. It's a great knife. It's a great knife. So we have now, for the first time ever, opened up my Number of the Beast vinyl. There's the back cover, by the way. Quick look here just at the inner sleeve. We have the lyrics on one side. We have photographs on the other side. Credits in the corner, Martin Farmer Birch, and we're going to take a look at the actual record. This feels like 180 grams to me. Yeah, it's definitely 180 grams.
Is Total Eclipse on it, or if they dropped Gangland?
This has Gangland.
So I think they reshuffled the track list.
Invaders, Children of the Damned, The Prisoner, 22 Acacia, Number of the Beast, Run to the Hills, Gangland, and Hallowed. Oh, and I also want to point out, I think it was around this time that Martin Birch started using nicknames on his albums. And on this album, he's Martin Farmer Birch. Not his coolest nickname. I think his best, it's Farmer on that version too. There you go. I think his best nickname is To Come on Peace of Mind, but we'll get there. We will get there.
I don't have the original inner sleeve, but yeah, the labels seem to be the same.
Yeah, more or less. No, they are different, Jex. Mine doesn't have red lettering.
Oh.
And I think the other side is slightly different too. Those Eddie heads looked slightly different to me.
I can't tell if it's just the light.
It's hard to, it is hard to tell, but this side is 100% absolutely different. You can totally see it's different. So that's cool. We're getting a look at some different versions of the release tonight. So we've seen a bunch of CDs. Tim would be all over this. So we have seen a whole bunch of cool stuff. We have seen a whole bunch of cool stuff tonight, from CDs to vinyl. My original Run to the Hills single that I got at a Zeller's store, probably for like 99 cents back in the 80s. One of my very first, I was in grade school when this was in our house. Again, this was my sister's record, but I liberated it from her collection many, many years ago. That's about it, guys. Do you guys have anything else you want to say about the Number of the Beast before we say goodbye? No.
I think everything that needs to be said has been said.
Excellent.
Everything that can be said has been said.
Excellent. So check out Jex Russell at his socials. jexcaliber.wordpress.com will take you to all the right places. Jex, thank you so much for joining us tonight for Number of the Beast, your gateway into this wonderful world of Iron Maiden. We are going to be exploring the entire discography, and as I said earlier, next up we are going to be talking about Beast over Hammersmith, and then on to the Peace of Mind album. Take care, everyone. Thank you for watching Grab a Stack of Rock. Please like, subscribe, give it a share, do whatever you can to help. We have t-shirts for sale. We have coffee mugs, whatever you want. But the main thing is, up the irons. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.